It's
Welcome, everyone. Hi.
hey everybody.
I'm going to get my camera set up. Okay.
Oh, good. You have a nice big pot there for your toffee.
I have a nice big pot here for my toffee. That's right.
Yes. Say that 5 times fast. I I launched today's newsletter about not quite an hour ago,
Oh my.
and it was, as I was saying to you earlier, 7 recipes for cookies and holiday treats. And I'm just going to make a note to myself from now on not to do a live video an hour after that happens, because that's the time to like relax and maybe have my second cup of coffee. As I see you are, I'll join you in some water. But I'm so excited because we're going to be baking one of those with a little sort of riff that's a spin on
Wow.
what's in the actual newsletter. So, what are you making today?
I want to say hello to everyone. And just want to say I've had a similar morning and we just had a hard time logging on. So we're just going to leave that all behind us. And we're going to be here now and make some delicious treats together. And I can't wait. Let's first introduce ourselves. I just want to say welcome to everyone. It's so great to see you all,
Really is.
at least to see your names. We do have a message. We can see messages that pop in. So anytime you want to shout out a comment or a message, do so because we will try to answer those as they come in. Today, first of all, I just want to say Melina and I met. We have known each other like virtually for a really long time, but we hadn't met in person ever until this fall at a potluck party for Alexis Deboshnik, who I've done a live with as well. And it was like we zeroed in on each other, and I was like, "You are my people."
Yes. And
So
it's at this cookbook gathering that I actually mentioned also today in the newsletter that meets every other month or so. And it's this incredible group of women in food. And sometimes it changes. And lo and behold, in that installment, got to see you. And that was the first that had ever occurred. So yeah, it was
yes,
really a lovely moment.
like email friends ever since. And when I was thinking about a December live, I was like, "Ooh, Melina, we got to do something." And then this idea for edible gifts came into play because I am actually not, Melina's making a cookie today. I'm not a cookie maker. I'm much more of a savory chef, although I do love baking. But today's recipe kind of made me fall in love with this idea of edible gifts because it's not cookies and it feels a bit like magic to me. I'm making a Buttercrunch. It's a chocolate coated butter crunch. We're going to top it today with pistachios and rose, but talk through a million different variations. This is like, once you get the base technique, you can adapt this in so many different ways. And Melina, what are you making?
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. It's so lovely to see you from my abode just a little bit further north in the Hudson Valley, which you're in the Hudson Valley too, but it's funny how the Hudson Valley spans so many beautiful neighborhoods and regions. And there's crisp snow outside. It is super chilly today, and it feels like just the right day to have the oven on and do some baking. I'm going to be baking. And what's funny, actually, is I don't really consider myself a cookie person at all. And I'm very much a savory person. I love flavors and I love finding ways to adapt flavors into sweet things without ever making them overly sweet, because to me that ruins flavor. It's sugar, right? Um, so that being said, I'm going to bake a long loved sort of riff on a Florentine that's in this version studded with almonds and oats. It's pretty virtuous. There's some sugar, there's a little bit of honey, and then there's some other aromatics, and you can do like endless riffs on those aromatics. So you can make it yours in your own kitchen. And today I'm going to be making a true Florentine where there's like a sandwich cookie situation with some ganache that is yet to be produced, and it should be a lot of fun. We've got some similar alchemy going on in our respective kitchens, and it'll be fun to see like where there's overlap and how each of us is doing it. And
I love that each of these recipes can be adapted too, because at least with my philosophy of cooking, it's really about finding pleasure for oneself. And so, and tuning in to like your own tastes and desires. And so I love recipes where we can play. You have some opportunity to play.
yeah.
Thank you. So I think Melina, I'm
Yes.
going to start it because most of my recipe is waiting around.
It's yes, fair.
That
So there are a few things that I can begin with, and one of the things I actually really, really love about this recipe is how quickly it comes together, and for how quickly it comes together, the incredible joy and delight at the end, eating the cookies. So I'm going to dive right in. Is that cool?
Yeah, but I was gonna say if I get started, most of my recipe is just
Yeah,
me waiting to come for it to come to temperature.
fair,
So if
right.
I get that going, I can just sit back and watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do it. Let's see.
So Buttercrunch, basically, we're making a candy. I'm not much of a candy maker, but listen, this is so easy. You do need two tools, though. One is a candy thermometer or deep fat thermometer, same thing. Because we're gonna, or you can use a temperature like an instant read temperature, but really the only trick to this recipe is to keep your eye on things near the end because we're going to be cooking a butter and sugar mixture to 298 degrees. That's an important temperature right below hard crack. It's going to give us a toffee that's like crunchy and chewy, but not like or not just fall apart and loosey goosey. And then the other tool that is really helpful to have is a silicone liner. So when the toffee comes out, we spread it on here, it cools, and it's really easy to take off of the silicone. Okay, so what goes into this? This is so simple. We've got 1 stick and 6 tablespoons of butter. By the way, once I get this recording, I will share it with my audience, with all of you, and share this recipe as well. So you can take notes if you want, but you don't have to. And then we have 2 cups of sugar. Is that two? No, 1 cup of sugar. I was like, that feels like too much. A cup of sugar and some fine sea salt. And basically, all we're going to do is get actually 2 tablespoons of water and add this to the mixture. And then I'm going to pop my candy thermometer in here, give it a stir and start to cook it, and it's going to melt and it's going to bubble and it's going to do all sorts of cool things that we can watch and observe, and then we're going to just cook it to 298. So I'm going to get some water, get that started. Occasionally I'll bring the camera over so you guys can see what's happening in the pot, but that is literally it for now. So Melina, hop to it.
Excellent. So the way that this recipe gets started is by heating some butter, 2 tablespoons, in a small pan, which I have here. And I'm going to add that over to my stove. And I don't have an induction burner. And one of these days, I may break down and get one because they're just so great, especially for keeping everything in one place. But then once that has come to melting, I'm going to be adding oats and almonds. And in fact, a couple aromatics at that time as well. And in today's instance, the recipe that I just posted in today's newsletter is a black pepper variation, which it's like this wonderful little sneak in surprise where you're eating this buttery, lacy edged cookie that has beautiful caramelization, and you get the sweetness, you get the oats, you get the earthiness of the almonds, and then as you're finishing chewing, all of a sudden the heat comes in. And it's a subtle heat, it's a warming heat, it's not like a boil you over heat, but it's because of the black pepper. And a very little goes a long way. So there's the black pepper as per the recipe from today. But also today I'm going to use some orange zest because I find the lightness and the lift that citrus always brings is, you know, universally loved. And to make today's newsletter, I had to bake cookies, obviously. So I have an entire batch that is today's recipe that doesn't have the orange zest, and
Favorite.
it's just yeah, I mean these are incredible. So to add the orange zest and then to do what we're going to do with making the ganache sandwiches, I think it's going to be a nice extra addition, and certainly for people to have um, to receive as gifts because I'm not eating all these cookies and to be able to share that. So the butter's on its way. As soon as it's a little bit further along, I'll bring it back over. Also, I need to get the ganache going, but because we have probably 15 minutes and the cookies need to bake. The ganache can happen in a little while. So the butter's going. I'm going to say that while that's happening, there is a sugar and egg mixture that is, in this instance, I cut back the sugar. So it's a quarter cup in the recipe. I took a tablespoon out because we're going to be adding chocolate, which of course is adding some sweetness. And it's one small egg. And basically all that's happening is with a fork, I'm whisking the two together until it gets like light and creamy. And, it's like maybe 30 seconds, a minute of that kind of action to get it supple and pretty and a uniform, creamy consistency. And I'm almost there. So I'll show you that.
I'm going to show you all really quickly the mixture so you can see
Yeah.
everything's melted and buttery. At this point, I'm going to put in the candy thermometer. Well, I need two hands to do that. So I'm going to put in the candy thermometer, and essentially we just keep our eye on this and we cook it until it comes to 298 degrees in the candy thermometer.
Cool.
It's going to start to turn golden brown and then like a nuttier brown, a darker brown. And really the reason I love making this is because it just feels like this. It's such a simple process, but it is alchemy, as is all cooking. But to me, it just feels really festive and cool. And I actually love, Melina, that your cookies don't have that much sugar. I usually use natural sweeteners in my cooking just because
Yes.
of flavor, and I prefer the balance and the nuance that they provide instead of just kind of like the hit of sugar, which is just
Totally.
This is not the case here, but we are going to balance it with the nutty pistachios and sea salt and some rose.
So I'm going to show you. I have here we go. The butter's fully melted. So I'm adding the oats, and that's the almonds and the oats, and just giving that a quick little stir. And once that's incorporated, I'll add the cracked black pepper and set the pan down to do fresh zesting of the orange that I mentioned. So there's that. And then I just want to show you also, let's see here.
Melina, is there any flour in those cookies? Is it
Tiny bit. Yes. And I feel like it could easily be adapted to gluten-free because it's a teaspoon and half a teaspoon. So it's a very, very tiny amount of the flour. Let me just show you. Here's those whipped, the egg and the sugar mixture, pale and silky and ready to go there. I'm just going to turn this back up. We're on TV stations. Isn't this incredible?
I want to say, since I am gluten-free, and I know a lot of my viewers are, although my recipes, I always say they just have to be gluten-free. Like, that's just like the side effect. But you could totally use a gluten-free flour blend in the cookies that you're making. I'm sure of it, Melina, if there's that.
Yeah. I mean, so at our cottage, I am regularly hosting guests and doing these beautiful, curated, seasonally driven dinners. And I do these intimate supper clubs in addition to the ones held at the cottage. And so often I'm thinking about people who prefer to or need to eat in a gluten-free lifestyle. And I feel like, that's often, especially these days, easy to do because so many incredible products exist because the culture has shifted.
Yeah.
And for those reasons, I love making recipes that are gluten-free, that don't need to be gluten-free, but that give an extra benefit and make it more universally available to others. So, orange zest.
I wish that you were here in my kitchen. Melina and I were talking about this. We were like, okay, one day we're going to do something actually physically together, but this smelled bonkers. This smells so good.
Tell us what it smells like.
Okay, so the butter that we added is browning. So we get that hint of brown butter, but then the sugar, of course, is caramelizing. So it's like buttery caramel. And it smells amazing. And so we're at right now about 240 degrees. Again, just stir it occasionally to keep so that it evenly browns, and we're bringing it up all the way to 2 minutes.
Cool. I am going to, at this point, to the sugar and egg mixture, I'm going to add a small amount of honey. I feel like the addition of this honey, it's a half teaspoon in this instance. It gives an extra little earthiness and a round kind of a sweetness that's different from regular sugar. And I like that, that effect. And there's also a half teaspoon of vanilla extract, and that is going to get stirred in. And then the remaining ingredients are all going to be incorporated and stirred into this sugar and egg mixture. So add that vanilla extract. Stir it together one more time. It's funny how much smell, right? Our senses really shape what cooking, baking, what all endeavors in the kitchen are, right? That the smell of something is a way to understand when it's ready
Yeah.
or to bring, happy and eager eaters into the kitchen to see what's going on. I always feel like when we're connected to our senses in cooking, we can be intuitive cookers, chefs, cooks, and that's really special to.
That's the premise. One of the premises behind my book. I have a book coming out in January called Mind, Body, Spirit, Food, but it really is, I gotta pull it. I gotta pull it. It really is about that intention and about dropping into our senses. I don't know if you can see the thermometer gauge, but we are exactly at 298. So at this point, I'm going to work fast, pull this out, and add a teaspoon of vanilla paste, or you can use extract, but the vanilla paste just has a richer vanilla flavor. Now, another option you could do here is add like peppermint. I've done a candy cane version, which is an adaptation of a recipe from Dominique Ansel. And he adds peppermint extract and then tops the Buttercrunch with candy cane. So that is just like another variation. What it you see Dr. doing here, this is the only part you want to work fast. You pull it out and then shimmy the pan around, and you can use an offset spatula just to spread it in a nice even layer. And then we're going to let this cool completely. And while we do that, I'm going to melt your chocolate. Okay. Thank you for letting me butt in, but that was
It was so funny.
Then.
When you were exclaiming, I had my head turned down and I thought, you're just talking about your book. And I was like, oh no, there's a thing. The thing is happening. So I fully respect that the thing is happening. So thank God mine is not, the urgent sort of nature. I have the mixture with the egg and sugar and now vanilla extract and honey. And there's that tiny bit of flour. There's a even smaller portion of baking powder and a pinch of kosher salt. So then to that, I'm adding the almonds, the almond oat butter mixture with the orange zest, with the cracked black pepper. And things are smelling, subtle and spiced over here, but that's going to really unfold as the baking process is underway. And now all I have to do is mix the mix. So I'll just show you. It's pretty straightforward. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I love it so. So I'm just stirring, getting all the liquid mixture incorporated into the solids. And then from here, once that's fairly well incorporated, I'm going to be portioning it out onto 2 parchment-lined baking sheets in teaspoon-sized portions. Now, when you look at it, and I'm going to show it to you once I've portioned it, when you look at it on the baking sheet, it looks like, wow, what is this? It's like it's not going to add up to not much. And I feel like, well, that alchemy inside a hot oven just transforms everything, and you'll see. So I'm going to start to portion, and then I'll show it to you once I have everything laid out. Okay.
Let me just describe what I just did. So I have 12 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. This is just a good quality chocolate bar, any chocolate bar you like. Pop it up. I'm going to melt it in a double boiler with a teaspoon of coconut oil. And for this buttercrunch, it actually gets coated on both sides in the melted chocolate, which is pretty luxurious. You could just do one side. You could cut the amount of chocolate in half to 6 ounces and just coat the top. And then that's where the toppings get fun because, like I said, I'm going to use finely chopped pistachios and rose petals, which are so fun and sexy to use. You want to buy edible rose petals, of course. But
Can I ask you about that?
Yeah.
sometimes when I think about rose petals, I feel like, wow, what is the ultimate effect going to be? Because a little truly goes a long way. Is
Yeah.
that a sort of like a peripheral atmospheric experience, or is it like the front?
No, it's totally peripheral, atmospheric. A little bit of the reasoning for the rose is because we're doing a holiday. And so I
Yeah.
liked the idea of the green and the pink or the green and the red,
Oh,
but it adds this surprise element because Buttercrunch is usually like you think of like chopped nuts. You could do peanuts, you could do almonds. Like I said, you could do
yeah.
candy cane on top. But the rose with the pistachio, it it takes you into an entirely different flavor profile. And all of a sudden you're like sunning on a beach in the Mediterranean. That's where it takes me.
Mm. Who doesn't love that?
Who doesn't love that?
It's funny because I didn't think of your green, red, et cetera kind of methodology. And I just thought, well, obviously it's festive. It's obviously gorgeous and simple. I mean, not simple, festive and special was the word. And that alone just felt like celebration and a worthwhile endeavor because of that. But yes, festive also in the way you explained.
I'm going back to our senses because milk
Yes.
chocolate is probably one of my favorite things to do in the kitchen. So, like I said, in my book, it's about more. It's a cookbook, and there's tons of recipes in there. Recipes that I adore, and it's a book about the process of cooking and how we can really bring more presence into the process in order to create more joy, right? And delight and joy. And I think freedom ultimately in our lives, because then we can become connected, more deeply connected to our bodies and to the foods we eat. But there's something about melting chocolate that beauty is just like one of life's joys. And yeah, you can completely do this in the microwave and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a few minutes just to stand by your stove and watch chocolate melt and smell chocolate melting and be in your body in this moment, that to me is the best kind of meditation.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Being in your body and being present is, um, I think, so underutilized in our contemporary society. We are just tasked with things endlessly.
Yeah.
We are driven to be nonstop producers of all manner of creativity. And it really makes me sad to think about that because I was an artist and
Yeah. Me
I
too.
really still feel like an artist, but I know that in the sort of regimented and constant kind of pace that we're in these days, it's hard to be able to retain that connection. And one of the reasons I actually moved upstate was because from the city, was because I really wanted to connect to nature and I wanted to develop a daily foraging practice, which I sort of got bitten by the bug down in Central Park many, many years ago. And I was just like, I needed a different kind of prioritization.
Yeah.
And so the last book that I wrote, A Year at Catbird Cottage, really is this like celebration of connecting to the natural world and the seasons and what grows during what season. And this was my first garden established here. And it was a way for me to like explore heirloom ingredients and preserve the seasons, both the wild ingredients as well as things in my garden. And then to be able to like make incredible menus for people who wanted to celebrate their own method of being present and celebrating life. And that's how the whole idea of Caprid Cottage even was born. So I love that the book celebrates all of those things. And there's a certain kind of musing that prefaces each chapter, which are the seasons, that describes in a sort of like a journaling kind of a capacity what's happening right now and the beauty of or the foibles of whatever the moment is presenting. And then it goes into the recipes. And it's funny how even to this day I'm cooking from it all the time. And I feel like that's a nice testament to have to be like, oh yeah, I like these
Yeah.
things.
Well,
And
it's like, with cooking, it's
yeah,
not something all of us have to do, to be honest, anymore, because there's so many convenience foods available. But we all have to eat, we all have to feed ourselves. And so
yeah,
there's an opportunity to use this thing that we all have to do and to make it into something a little bit more nourishing instead of just like the food is fuel.
Yeah.
And we actually bring in the creativity and the artistry and the sense of like, yeah, like creation. We are in our senses here as humans. And there's something really special about it when you tap in and you get out of all of the, especially this time of year. Like, I don't know about you guys, like all of the noise is so loud right now. And all my body wants to do is to get quiet. And so here, perhaps making Buttercrunch or making Florentine cookies with that intention of like just allowing yourself the space to get quiet during the half hour it takes to make the recipe.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to briefly share this before they go into the oven. Actually, I'm going to turn this down because this will be more successful. Here is what we see on the tray, right? It is pretty tiny. And I've got 2 sheet pans with said dollops. And both of these are going to go into the hot oven. I'm going to rotate them most of the way through. And we'll take it from there once we're at that stage. I'll be right back.
Okay. And then meanwhile, my chocolate is beautifully melted. So like I said, I'm using half the chocolate on the top portion of the coffee and then the other half on the bottom. And this, aside from the button of the which is pretty specific, the rest of it is just play. So I'm going to just eyeball it. I'm going to drizzle on about half of this chocolate mixture and spread it in an even layer. And then I probably won't be able to show you the other half because the chocolate needs to fully set before you add it. You can absolutely pop it in the fridge, but my little fridge back there doesn't fit full of sheet pan. So I'd have to run into my basement where my other fridge is, which I won't do. But
Oh, that's good. It's always fun to hear when other recipe developers and authors and food stylists have extra fridges and freezers because I feel we can't make it happen with just one.
You can't.
Yeah.
All right. So I wish you were here to play with me with this chocolate. But essentially, now what we're going to do when the chocolate's nice and warm is scatter on the toppings. For the pistachios, I ground them in a food processor. You can totally just chop them by hand, but I like how fine, like you get the little fine bits in the toffee. Yeah. That's a preference thing. So we're going to scatter these on how much or how little as you like. Followed by the rose petals, and then last but not least, some coarse sea salt, because again, we want that balance of sweet and salty. So when I started making this butter crunch, I have to tell this story behind it. Years and years and years ago, like when I have a 16-year-old, almost 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And I think it was when my oldest was in kindergarten and it was time for teacher gifts. And I didn't want to do cookies, but I'm in the food space and I wanted to do something food wise. And that's when I found the Dominique Ansel recipe for the peppermint butter crunch. And I've been making a version of it ever since. So for this, I'll make a double batch, which actually is more than you think. And you break it up into these big shards. And then I pack them into little bags, like little cute cellophane bags or whatever. Yeah. And those have been my teacher gifts, my gifts to my post office, all of the service providers in your life, friends. All they need are a few beautiful shards of the butter crunch with a card from the kid or maybe a gift card or gift certificate or whatever, whatever the case may be. But it adds that little element of something homemade and something special.
It's great to hear that you have that tradition because every year I am of the same mind of, I have just been revving my engine and I'm so ready to stop. That's gorgeous. Love that. And despite my better interests to slow down, I endeavor an enormous project that is whatever these holiday treats, whatever form that they make. And most of it is because I want to be able to gift to people that I care about. And so our UPS driver and our mailman and US FedEx and then people who are, taking care of me. Like I have this acupuncturist now in my life. And, I talk to her every session about here's what's going on with me, but like to be able to bring her some of the treats that are part of the world that is my own world, it was so cathartic, and it makes it worthwhile. I'm a little run ragged for it, but every year it's just wonderful because everybody gets something that's special and nobody sees it coming. They're just like, wow, you thought of me. How wonderful, right? And it really, that's what this whole season um, is about, should be about. And I love that.
I'm going to answer a quick question. The last thing I sprinkled
Yeah.
on is coarse sea salt. This is Malden sea salt. So I had the rose petals, the pistachios, and the Malden sea salt. But I love that you said that, Melina, because really that is what this season is about. And it doesn't have to be, you know, the grand gestures.
Yes.
It's like the tiniest things and letting somebody know that you do value them. And that's when the giving becomes equally as satisfying as the receiving. It's like that reciprocal exchange is so satisfying.
Yeah. Yes. If there are some questions, we can maybe have a minute to answer any. And I'm going to just scroll through. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. There was so much going on that I didn't get to see so many people, and now I do. Um, yeah, I don't see as many questions. Come on, y'all. Don't you have a question? Life. Come on. Reflection. And if not, that's fine. Because we're just about to. For me, did you melt chocolate, just chocolate, or did you do it ganache?
I did just chocolate and a tiny bit of coconut oil.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, just adds a little bit of sheen. This is not tempered. I'm not a
Right.
technical baker. We're not going to go there, but you don't need to for this recipe. It
Yeah.
gets bloom before the chocolate has a chance to bloom. At least
Yes. So tempering is a really important thing if you've got chocolate that is going to show its surface for any length of time. Otherwise, the milk solids separate and you've got that white sort of chalky appearance. I'm doing a ganache, which also makes it so that you don't have to go through the work of tempering. Even though it's not a huge amount of work, it's a little more specialized and it sounds kind of like, what the hell are we going to be doing, you know? So for the ganache, which will be sandwiching the Florentines.
Type in because we had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Really quickly, storage. So for the Buttercrunch, after you break it up into these big pieces, you can store it in a tin, a holiday tin. It'll last for weeks. You can store it in a glass jar. Or like I said, I often do like little cellophane bags so that you can see through them, so you can see what's in there as a gift. And they will last for weeks and weeks. I used to make this in early December. I'm making it now, but I used to make it in early December for gifting at the end of the season. It lasts for a very long time. How do you store your Florentines?
I store mine in a cookie tin or in a filled plastic container between layers of parchment. And if they aren't sandwiched with the ganache, they actually keep for a couple weeks.
Wow.
And sometimes I really use that idea of how long will something last once it's been baked, because I'm coordinating multiple different kinds of cookies, like in today's newsletter, where I'm often shipping a group off. And I need to know, like, okay, how long do I have before I need to know that, like, oh, this isn't going to arrive the way that it's intended. And that can really be a problem because it undoes all the special work that you've put in, right? So these really last for a while. You can always do the ganache at the last minute before either you're serving them or sending them away to whoever your loved ones are. My cream is almost ready, and I'm going to check on the cookies to see how they're doing.
Next, if you have any other questions, please pop in. In the meantime, I'm going to show you my little Christmas tree, my little kitchen Christmas tree. We get like a little Charlie Brown tree every year, and I stick it in my kitchen just because I spend most of my time here. We have another tree in our living room, but this is
Hang on one second. I just want to show this ganache, and the cookies are basically at their point. The ganache, once the cream has been poured over the chocolate, the mixture will sit for a few minutes because that hot cream is going to be what melts the chocolate. And this is going to sit for 5 minutes or so. But while that's sitting, I wanted to show you something that is in the process of the cookie baking. That is a tip I'd like to share with you, because as the cookies spread when they bake, they don't necessarily spread evenly. And that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But because you have, you know, you can say, oh, well, I'm going to work. Can you see what I'm doing here? Where I'm kind of nudging them a little rounder with this silicone spatula. And so at this stage, it's a really nice moment to be like, oh, well, let's just, if you want them to be round, that is, right? They can be wonky and sort of amoebic, and that's fun too. But if we're sandwiching them, we want them to have more of that uniformity. And so this is a perfect time before they've set to gather them. And a silicone spatula is the perfect tool to do that. And so you just pop them back in for another minute or so. And then it's going to be like they were always just like, this one's going to be a cook's treat because it's a little wonky and obviously already set. And
That
that's a
the
good thing
next
too.
question is, how do you make extra for your kitchen assistants? And that's why I make 2 trays, because this, for my oldest especially, my youngest loves this too, but this is my oldest's favorite Christmas tree, holiday tree that I've made. So there always has to be extra. And for me, the chef's treat always are the corner pieces, because they've got chocolate that goes all the way around. And
Oh, yes, most definitely. You're looking out. See, you know what side your bread is buttered on,
exactly.
so to speak. So the ganache here is working. I have 2 different sheet pans, and it's fascinating because in the oven, everybody's ovens function differently, right? And there's a hot spot often, or the lower rack is different functioning than the upper rack, and that's normal. So I just rotated the 2 pans with each other. But in this instance, I've added a third wild card, and that is I have a stainless steel sheet pan and an aluminum one today. And the stainless batch is going a little more slowly, so I'll be nudging all of the little edges in a couple minutes with them. But
I love that
the first one's almost ready.
I love that you brought this up, because there are variables in all of our kitchens, and that we just have to get to know. Like, I have a
Always.
thermometer. I have a cheap, maybe $6 oven thermometer in my oven, because, and before I had this one, especially, my oven, after, having it for a certain amount of time, it was running 25 to 50 degrees off. It was actually cooler than what the actual temperature was. So I just encourage everyone to get to know their own equipment and their own appliances, and also to trust your instincts, because while you might say like 8 to 9 minutes for cookies, you know, it's really helpful to have people like Melina, and like, I guess myself as well, where I love to provide visual. I do video for my recipes just because I'm such a visual person, and that's how I learn. So I always include that. But to take those visual cues and use that almost more so than the recipe itself, because your kitchen's different.
Yeah. And when, even if the oven is off, to understand, oh, right, the cookies are starting to really smell aromatic and filling the house with their fragrance. That's its own kind of sign of, oh, that means something, right? Like the flavors are really blooming to their full capacity. And that means something should be checked out. And I feel like, um, the more that we use our ovens, the more that we do whatever the processes are, whether it's a baking um, technique or cooking, whatever it is, it can be fermentation. The more that we're doing it, the more that we're like investing in our expertise and our ability to understand with intuition what a recipe would otherwise be telling us, right? I'm going to go check on the cookies.
Yeah. One way that I talk about in my book, where you can start if you feel like cooking with your intuition feels like way out there and you're here, is simply salting to taste. And that sounds so like, of course you salty, but that is intuition. That is using your intuition and knowing what a pinch of salt is going to taste like. So just pay attention. And that's just one small trust muscle you can build that can your trust muscles in the kitchen.
I like that trust muscle.
Back to those senses as well. Like, oh, I can hear like the steak is all of a sudden the sound shifted. It's going too far, or it's bubbling too heavily. I can hear it. That's where the senses really come into play.
Right. Like it's a bad crackle instead of a pleasing sizzle, right? And those are nuances, but things that we can totally connect to the more that we're doing something. And the only reason this batch is going to be wonky, I'm just going to say, because they're almost where they should be in their finished caramelized spread. And that's okay because that will mean that my family who's arriving next week, I'll twist their backs and have them eat them. I'll just show them to you without burning myself, hopefully. I'm going to set these back in for about another minute. The others are almost ready. They might actually be ready right now.
Melina, do you have a favorite holiday cookie or holiday treat, like for you, that you like to make or eat or both?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite holiday? Well, it depends because, like I said, I don't really verge sweet, and I really love sourdough bread and focaccia and homemade pasta. And so I'll be rolling with my husband some noodles for my parents who are going to arrive next week because they're an unbeatably delicious noodle. They're really easy to make. It's actually the noodles that I made for the wedding that I did back in September for 150 people, which you should never do. But it's an extraordinarily pleasing experience to eat. And I do end up having sweets because it's sort of inevitable this time of year. But I also find that um, as long as I can like usher out the packages, there's less left for me, which is a good thing. The ganache truffles might be my favorite actually
Okay.
because I love dark chocolate and we can look at dark chocolate as a health food in a way where we obviously can't do that with baked goods. And so a little bit of that with my coffee or with some wine, I'm happy. And I just want to, sorry, quickly, we're at the stage with the ganache where it is, it's funny. I was like, is this going to work? Because I'm going to show you how this hasn't worked. I have a small enough quantity of both the chocolate and the cream that it was like, all right, we'll see if the cream can be hot enough to offset the temperature of the room and the nature of the chocolate itself. So the good thing is I have a borosilicate glass vessel here, and I can put that over on the radiant heat from the burner and get that remelted. You could also certainly use a microwave to do that, but that's a wonderful way if your ganache hasn't cooperated to get it to the place that it needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like that happens more often. Like that happens more often than you'd think with ganache, and it just doesn't fully incorporate, and that's okay. It's again, a lots of variables when it comes to baking and cooking. I'd say my favorite treat would be these little pecan tartlets that I adapted from my mother-in-law, and I love them because they're sweet with maple sugar and they're almost salty. But I
Oh,
feel like
yes.
on the middle
I
is
love a little
this
salty
little
soup.
chunk of dark chocolate in the middle.
Yeah.
And so they're like the maple pecans, the it's like little press-in cream cheese dough. It doesn't have any sugar, so it's like, oh, they're so good. And then I have a I have a amaretto black cherry chocolate trifle coming to the newsletter this week. The opposite of that.
Yeah, that sounds
Oh,
incredible.
pleasure. This is like we are gonna revel in the pleasure. That is my dream dessert, hands down. Well, Lena, do you do a big holiday dinner for your family?
Yes. So, characteristically, I don't have family in town, and so this makes this year particularly special. And my mother and I, and honestly, my father and my husband, we're all real huge fans of leg of lamb. And some years I will encrust that leg with um, cumin and coriander, black pepper, a little bit of smoked paprika. My mother loves to insert a million garlic clove slices into slits in the meat. And I think we might do a riff on the two. And so one of the things I'm especially excited about is all the vegetables that are going to go with it because I have kohlrabi and I have a load of different kinds of potatoes like Corolla potatoes, white potatoes, Yukons, and that sort of waxy butteriness that they will impart. And then there's things like celery and leeks. I'm going to check on the ganache. And all of those later.
I will include a link to the pecan tarts in this replay, and the trifle is coming to the newsletter on Sunday. And Melina, the truffles you mentioned for them in your newsletter now?
Yes, there's two riffs on the ganache truffles. There's a cassis liqueur. Can you see this?
Yeah.
And there's a brandy version. And obviously these Florentines are in the newsletter. There are some incredible clove and dark chocolate infused Brinsley ones that were part of my childhood, and I had no idea that those were the cookies of my childhood. And then there's four more, and each of them offers their own kind of like gorgeousness and magic and deliciousness. And I want to just say that as somebody who really is opposed to food colorings and overly sweet things, I had to sort of be true to myself this season and say, well, how can I make them still exciting and beautiful? And as I was seeing all of these incredible displays coming through on Substack, I was like, holy crap, this is never going to work. And yet, happily, I feel like they're beautiful, and the brown guys are really gorgeous too, and they're just so
I
delicious.
think
So
brown cookies are underrated. Those are always
yes,
the best cookies. Oh yeah, borosilicate. The vessel is great. The glass, heat-proof glass. Yes.
do you see how this ganache has now just come together so beautifully? Everybody's nodding, right? Like on your own screens, I'm sure. So right now it's not even particularly hot, so I can hold the bowl. It was a really low heat. And the cookies are out of the oven and they're cooling. And there's this sort of window of time where they're still not set. And so they won't release as easily. But after 5 minutes or so, they will really easily release with a spatula. And I'll show you that. And then we'll get to sandwiching these beauties.
I was just going to say, if anybody has any other questions, pop them into the comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Borosilicate glass is, I mean, it started as chemistry class, right? And many of us might even remember science classes with borosilicate glass, but it is so incredibly versatile as a tool in the kitchen. And I find that because they come in so many different kinds of sizes and shapes, and they all have pour spouts on the vessels, that they are infinitely useful. And I like to have a number of different sizes. I have some that are upstairs that I don't use as often, but that I love to, include if I'm doing like a cookbook or editorial kind of shoot. But they always come in handy. And they're not pricey, which I love that also.
Do you have any other kitchen tools that you especially love?
Oh goodness. Well, so I'm using two of them right now. Let me just, without making a mess here. I swear by these little spatulas. And I actually have them in a number of sizes because I find that it's probably a little TMI. It is definitely TMI, but um, I love them so much that I will keep them for longer than I should because I can still make use of them in various ways. So my husband has been imploring me to get rid of some that are not the right shape anymore. And I have not agreed to do so. But especially because this version has a flat square edge, I find it more useful than the kinds that are the curved. I don't like these.
Yeah.
So I like these quite a lot. And I actually have a dear friend in Japan who has gifted me some smaller ones. And of course, I've just used them for this cookie newsletter and they're all on the dry rack. But one that is especially hilarious is the cutest, smallest spatula on the planet. Like, really, what are you? And I actually have found moments when I'm like, oh, this is the perfect tool that I need.
Work is
So
this.
there you go.
It's funny that you said that because I've talked about this in my newsletter a bunch. I mean, I have 3 here. I have 2 in my drying rack, and I have 1 here. I have so many mini spatulas. I have big spatulas as well. And then like my little mini measuring cup, which is a tablespoon measuring cup, is like
Oh, that's cool.
my favorite tools. I'm using it to measure vinegars, to measure, tamari, if it's like, so you're not like trying to juggle or measure a liquid in a
Yes.
or honey. I have 3 of these. And I use these all the time. Something about the mini little tools are really useful.
I completely agree. And I feel like there is a certain regard for that, perhaps, that is more widely available in Europe and in Japan.
Yeah, might
And
come up many ways too.
oh yeah, fun. Well, that's funny because I have some of those that were from my grandparents. Well, they're really like old school
Oh
Dutch.
yeah, yeah.
And so they're fully metal, but like, and they're gonna last for forever.
Wow.
Um, it's fun to have those kinds of tools. I really make a point to any elderly family to put in like a vote of like, when you're going to get rid of these and you're not doing as much cooking, could you please think of me, because these tools are often so beautifully crafted, or not like what you're going to find in a store in many places. And to have that specialization really helps, the efficacy of whatever we're doing in the kitchen. I'm going to show you the releasing of the cookies because they're finished. And I was using this spatula yesterday, so it just has some cookie schmeg on it. But that is actually even not as easy as it should be when they're finally ready. So there's a little bit of give still. They're ready, but when they're completely ready, they just sort of pop right off. And so I'm just going to wait because I can feel the resistance in that. And that's like another cue for learning and increasing your toolkit of being effective in baking, cooking, whatever your project is. Are you at a stage where you're about to do
So
the next?
no, I'm not going to show the other side. What I'm going to do is, you can see the silpat makes it so easy to flip it over. And it's quite hearty, but the chocolate is still really too soft. You need to wait until the chocolate is fully set before you flip it over and coat the next side. You can pop this in the fridge and it will help the chocolate sit or set faster. If in the meantime your chocolate gets hardened, just reheat it over your double boiler or in the microwave. And then you're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. And then again, it's a bit of a waiting game because you want the chocolate to be fully set. And once it is, that's when you break it up into the toffee pieces.
So
And
if it was at room temperature, how long would you give as a guiding sort of number?
I will. So this has probably been sitting for what, 20 minutes. I would give it a full hour to be safe. It is a really cold day, but our kitchen is really cozy today and I'm sitting by a stovetop. So if it was me, I'd probably go sit this by our back door where it's really drafty, and then just going to have to cool faster. I'm going to rinse my hands off of the chocolate.
I'm going to use this other sheet pan because, as it turns out, they are releasing even easier, which of course is kind of humbling because these are the ugly fash. Let me just turn it down so you can see.
Mary, to answer your question, that's completely up to you. So you can break them into pretty large shards. That would be a big piece of toffee. Or you can break them into smaller shards. It's easier to go bigger, I will say, because as you break them more and more, the chocolate can chip off. So I aim for pieces about this big, maybe 2 to 3 inches. But this is personal preference. So you can decide that for yourself. And I'm trying to see if there's any other questions.
All right, so now I have enough butter creed that I'm going to be able to share how the ganache and they function with each other. Basically, you're just trying to find two cookies that are similar to each other, similar enough so that they pair well in their shapes. And I'm just going to quickly do a couple mating them. And this is very fun. I haven't had these in a long time, so it's going to be quite nice to experience them.
Yeah, and that seems like the perfect cookie to sit down with a cup of tea, like this time of day.
Totally. All right, so we have a few here. This will be nice. So the ganache, you can always reheat in the um, microwave if you have one. I actually don't have one, but obviously stovetop with something that's a double boiler if you don't have borosilicate. So I'm just putting basically like a teaspoon on because this will still spread quite easily. And once it gets sandwiched, it will squeeze out the side. I'm using an offset spatula, but you could also use a butter knife if you don't have one. So I've got that beautiful sheen of chocolate, and I'm going to add the other piece and then just squeeze it. Whoa, that is still liquid. And set this aside. I have another prepared baking sheet with some parchment and just let that mm, solidify, which will take, as you were describing, probably the same amount of time unless I pop them in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
So then that is the process. In this instance, I used a quarter cup of cream and 2 ounces of dark chocolate. And in the ganache recipe, it's the same proportions, but that recipe's ganache went much more easily because of the volume of the hot liquid to the chocolate. And obviously, we shared a little tip there so that should you have problems with it actually forming ganache, second one made, it's easy to do, but you just downsize that proportion for whatever quantity you're producing. I think I might actually have more than I need, even with this small quantity, and that's fine. It'll be used for something else.
Yeah, that's another good thing to remember. If you have leftover chocolate, you can just refrigerate it and then reheat it, drizzle
Yeah.
it over, drizzle it over ice cream. I've got 2 kids. There's always going to be uses for chocolate. Dunk fruit in it. Like we'll find any way to use it up. Melina and I both hate wasting food. So we will use up every last little crumb that we can. That's something I get a lot of pleasure out of. Thank you so much, Mary. I want to just say thank you to everyone who has tuned in. As soon as I get the replay, I'm hoping today, sometimes it takes a while for us to get them on the back end of Substack and
Yeah.
kind of got a big day ahead, but I'm hoping to send that out today. I will include the rose pistachio butter crunch recipe. I'll also include a link to the pecan tartlets, my favorite little not so sweet holiday treat that I talked about. And then the trifle recipe that I mentioned is coming on Sunday, so stay tuned for that.
Yes.
And then Melina, it sounds like your newsletter is already out.
Yeah, so when the link goes live, I'll share it with everyone. But there are 7 amazing holiday ready delights waiting in your inbox. And so many of them are treats that I'm really excited about because most of them are new and they were so delicious and easy to make. So, not that easy is the defining characteristic, but it's nice during hectic days when you can put something together and say, okay, this is going to work. There are a couple that are not so easy, but the process is meditative and it's going to lead you to something that's really quite special and something for you to share with people you love.
I love that.
Yeah.
I just sign off and I guess I just want to say I'm wishing you all a really nourishing holiday season. And I hope that moments like these of watching this class, or maybe making things or other baked goods that you love, provide you with nourishment and with pleasure. And I hope that you can open that door for yourself, even though we're making these edible gifts for others. Like, let it be a gift for you too, in the making and in the eating. Like, save the little edge pieces for yourself. You deserve
Always.
that.
Yes. Let it fill your well, even if it's intense. And that's a nice thing to come back to for many moments of restoration.
Yes. And Mary, one last question. She said, where can we find those links? You will get an email. So my newsletter subscribers and Melina's, because I think this is linked for both of our audiences, you guys will get the email with this replay, and then we'll include those links that we mentioned.
Fabulous. Good question. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Bye all.
Bye, everyone.